Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to share my story with you, the story about how I passed TOEFL IBT. I actually scored 117 out of 120, and this was a great experience for me because I wanted to enter United States universities, and many of them required around 100 or around 90, so I was well above the grade I needed. And I wanted to share the methods that I used while preparing for TOEFL. I wanted to give you some advice, so if you're interested, if you're preparing for TOEFL right now, please continue watching. The first thing I wanted to tell you about TOEFL is that it actually tests your abilities to take the TOEFL. During the preparation process, you don't have to learn the English language, you just have to learn how to do tasks that are typical for TOEFL. And the best thing is to start preparing for TOEFL when you're upper intermediate level or advanced level. The first thing you have to do is find out which score is required by your university or institution that you want to enter using the TOEFL score. And this will give you the benchmark that you aim for. For example, my universities required 90 to 107, I think. So I aimed to do my best at the test. And the first thing I did is I downloaded Cracking the TOEFL IBT book and took the practice test, which showed that I scored 85%, which was below the score that I needed for my university. So the first thing I did, I determined the parts that are the most difficult for me. And surprisingly, that was speaking, because speaking in TOEFL, it's just, I don't know, people don't speak like TOEFL in real life. You're supposed to give 60-second speech and you have just 15 seconds to prepare and to gather all your thoughts on topics you never ever discuss in real life. So this was a bit tricky. So I started with speaking, and also reading caused some problems because I'm not really attentive. Sometimes I get distracted by things, and reading requires maximum concentration. Another advice I wanted to give you is you have to note the topics that are common for TOEFL. For example, ancient caves in France, life in the ocean, mammals, whatever, like all of those topics that you would have during your biology classes at school or geography classes at school, and those topics you would never discuss with your friends. Like, you wouldn't talk to them, talk to your friends on a daily basis about these topics, and this means you don't have vocabulary for those topics. Maybe you know the words, but you don't use them every day, so you forget them eventually. And you have just to note all those topics and watch a lot of videos on them. So I just watched them on YouTube. Like, I googled ancient caves in France and I watched all of those texts just to, to adapt my brain to those words, to adapt my brain to those topics, because you would have a very limited time during your TOEFL. Now let's get to the advice concerning the reading part. As I said, this was the part that caused a lot of difficulties for me. I think there were a couple of reasons for that. The first reason, and the most important one, is that I wasn't concentrated enough. But when I came to the exam, I tried to put all of my attention into the reading part, and so I scored 30 out of 30. And this is my advice for you. So the first thing that you need to do is concentrate maximally on your reading part. But the most difficult thing to do that during the exam is that when you start reading part, there are still people who are registering for the test and entering the room, so it can be really frustrating, but you have to do your best. Use the headphones that they give you. Back to the methods. The first thing that you need to do when passing reading part is just to scroll the text, because you just have to get the general idea of the text. You don't have to get into every single detail, because your task in reading part is not to memorize the text, not to understand every single detail, but to answer the questions that they give you. So what I did is I just read the first sentence of every paragraph, which gave me the idea of the text, and I got straight to the questions. The second thing, which is really important, is that questions actually follow the order of the text. So the first question you would get, you will find the answer in the first paragraph. The second question will be the first or second paragraph. But you will never get the first question with the answer in the last paragraph. That would never happen to you, and that makes life so much easier. A very important thing is that you need only one sentence to answer each question. For example, there will be a question like, I don't know, which color was the most popular among Impressionists in the 19th century? And there would be just one sentence that gives the answer. Say, for example, you found that sentence. Stop there. Just answer the question and get to the next one. Because if you would continue reading that sentence, there would be something really tricky that would surprise you, that would make you anxious, and you would think that you actually chose the wrong answer. For example, you would have, but in the 20th century they started using color blah blah blah, but they would use complex words, complex sentence structures, and that would actually add difficulty to answering the question. So my advice that once you find the right answer, just stop there and get to the next question. If you don't know what's the right answer straight away, I advise you to cross out the wrong answers. What I did is I took a piece of paper that they gave us during TOEFL and I made like a template for myself. I wrote ABCD, a lot of them, and I used every single for answering questions. For example, you have ABCD, but you're sure that B and C are wrong answers. Just cross them out on your paper. You would just have to decide between A and D, which makes life easier, right? Another great thing here is that you can go back to the answers. What happened to me is when I started the test, there were a lot of people coming into the room. It was really loud, I couldn't concentrate, so I just picked some answers in the first two questions and moved on to the next text. After you finish with your reading part, you go straight into the listening part. And I think this was one of the easiest parts for me, because the questions there, they do not require you to think. There wouldn't be any double meanings or some context that you need to remember in order to answer the question correctly. They're pretty straightforward. For example, you would listen to a text where the teacher explains what children are going to do during the lecture, and he says we're going to start with the test and then we'll continue to the new topic about mammals in Africa. And the question would be, what did children do at the beginning of the lesson? And you would answer the test. They are pretty straightforward. So the only thing you need to do during the listening part is listen to every detail. I made some notes. I tried to write down everything I hear, but the most important task is to not miss anything, because if you miss a couple of details, you won't be able to answer some questions. So this is really important. And what I also wanted to tell you is that I barely used my notes. Well, I used them to answer every fourth question, I'd say, something like that, statistically. But the other questions were pretty easy to answer just by what I remembered from listening. So that was pretty easy. And I scored 30 out of 30 for listening. Maybe another piece of advice, TOEFL is an American test, so they're using American people to talk to you during the listening part. If you could watch some movies in American English before your test, that would be great, just to prepare your ear, just to be ready to hear that American accent, because when I learned my English, I learned British accent, and then I had to kind of convert because I wanted to sound American. Okay guys, this is the end of part 1. Second part would be about TOEFL speaking and TOEFL writing. I really enjoyed talking to you in my video, and I wanted to let you know that I reached my goal. I was admitted to top 5 American universities. 2 of them offered me full financial aid. So if you're interested in my story, please subscribe to my channel, like, comment, and I hope to see you in the next videos. Ciao!